Welcome, one and all. Believe it or not, you're in my house, Elon Moreh, Shechem, what the non-Jews call Nablus. We're on Wednesday, Super Wednesdays here in the holy city, in the holy land, the land of Israel. Okay, a very important class today, short. With God's help, keep it short. So let's roll. The title of today's class is COVID-19, Connecting the Dots to the Messianic Era. I was speaking to two acquaintances about less than a week ago. I was talking to the first acquaintance, and he told me that he'd come down with COVID-19, and I asked him, how are you feeling? He said he's doing okay, but he's lost his sense of taste and sense of smell. Gave him a few words of encouragement, went to the next phone call, asked another acquaintance how he was doing, and I knew that both of them had the virus, and so I asked, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing okay. I've lost the taste, lost the sense of taste and the sense of smell. All of a sudden, it really hit me. Wow, both loss of taste, loss of smell. So I went to my friendly computer and looked up statistics on connection between COVID-19 and symptoms of losing sense of smell and taste. So let's look up a few things. It's based on a few sources. Source number one, up to 80% of people who test positive for COVID-19 have subjective complaints of smell or taste loss. There are altogether different things going on when it comes to smell and taste loss for COVID-19 patients compared to those with a bad cold. Carl Philpott, the lead researcher and professor of the University of East Anglia's Norwich Medical School, said in a press release, it means that smell and taste tests could be used to discriminate between COVID-19 patients and people with regular cold or flu, he added. Another study, anywhere from 34 to 98% of hospitalized patients with COVID-19 will experience a loss of smell. Some will experience it for more than 30 days, and some may never again regain it. With those encouraging words, we shall march forward. Okay, this really hit me hard, that COVID-19, the big flag of COVID-19 is losing your sense of smell and taste. And I spoke to these friends in the midst of the holiday of Sukkot, the holiday of the Tabernacles, where we know the last day of Sukkot, which is the highest of the highs, the climax, finale of Sukkot is the day of the willows. And interesting, the Talmud tells us that willows represent Jews that have no smell or taste. What does that mean in Torah terms, no smell or taste? It's not COVID-19. They do not have Torah merits, or neither do they have commandments that they have done. So this is like the lowest level. The lowest level a person can get is to be on the level of this willow. No smell, no taste. So I'm thinking, wow, where has the world dropped? What level of impurity have we dropped to? That we're on the level of the willow, no smell, no taste, COVID-19. So then it continued, because I smelled there's something big going on here. Excuse the pun. It says in the Talmud, Tractate Sota 49a, Rabbi Shimon ben, the son of Elazar, says, when purity deteriorated from the world, the world lost the sense of smell and taste. Now, there are commentators that connect this to we've lost the taste of fruits and vegetables, and there are commentators that speak about a general loss of smell and taste. Once again, when the world deteriorated, and we're talking about in the time of the destruction of the Second Temple, talking about almost 2,000 years ago. So imagine what we're talking about, deterioration of purity, compared to the zoo that's going on today in the world, which we'll soon discuss. I mean, you can't compare it. So think about how low. But very interesting. The Torah, the Talmud connects a deterioration of purity, modesty, with a loss of sense, a loss of the sense of smell and taste. So, okay, that's very interesting. So what is purity? When we speak about, okay, when the world deteriorated from its level of purity, what are we speaking about? So, we have two sources, there are many more, that say clearly we are talking about immodest behavior or sexual promiscuity. And the first source of ours is the book Machshevet Tzadik, page 291, and very interesting, also Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, in his Likutei Moharan, writes, he brings down that one of the 10 commandments is that a person is not allowed to be unfaithful in his marriage, or this includes also various sexual immodest behavior, promiscuity. And the commandment is lo tinaf, that there's a connection that Rabbi Nachman brings, and also the Talmud brings down, that your nose should not have pleasure. Lo tinaf. Tin is teheneh, enjoy, and af is a nose. So we know that there is a connection between the sense of smell and modest or immodest behavior. Very interesting. Once again, the connection between the sense of smell and how are we doing in the world as far as modest dress, behavior, speech. After seeing these sources that the world has deteriorated, when we speak about the world deteriorating, we are mainly speaking about sexual deterioration, immodest behavior. This is the point. Now, I've heard a lot of good stuff and important stuff, and everything is true about COVID and, what we could do about it spiritually. But personally, I've not heard this take about how important it is in our times right now to look ourselves in the mirror, and everyone on their own level, men, women, how can we improve ourselves when it comes to modest dress, behavior, speech. So this is very important for all of us. When we look today at the world, we're talking about 2,000 years ago, the words of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Okay, that's 2,000 years ago. But today, look at the situation. You have this LGBT group, they're flaunting their stuff all over the world, their parades, their marches. You can't open up your mouth. You open up your mouth against these groups, that's it, you're finished. Finito la commedia, buddy. We have the same-sex marriages. We have unfaithful levels we've never seen of people women, men being unfaithful in marriages with their commitments, with their marital commitments. So the world, you look at the people are running around naked like animals without any clothes. So the world is in the sewer of immodest sexual behavior, promiscuity. Now, very interesting. We know that there are 7 spiritual spheres, and we know that the 7 shepherds of the Jewish people, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David. So if you notice, number 6, the 6 spiritual spheres connected to Joseph, and that is modesty in sexual behavior. That's Joseph. He was righteous. He never fell, even though he was tempted by the wife of Potiphar in Egypt. He stood up to the test. So he's the symbol of purity, of sexual purity, of modest behavior, standing up. And right next to him is King David, is the Messiah. So it's very interesting how those 2 points are connected. Spiritual purity in the sexual realm and the coming of the Messiah. 2 connections. Or in our times we see that we have a loss of sexual morality, and this will, God willing, will trigger the coming of the Messiah. Because as bad as things get, there still is a time where God calls a time out on the court, says enough is enough. So this might be, it might be that the trigger of the coming of the Messiah will be Joseph. But Joseph represents purity in this subject, and the world will fall, unfortunately deteriorate into immoral sexual behavior. Or God will see that the Jewish people or Gentiles that observe 7 commandments of Noah begin to wake up, all of us making changes and improvements ourselves in these areas. This will target the coming of the Messiah. So either way we look at it. Very interesting, it says that, speaking of the Messiah, in Tractate Sanhedrin, page 93, side B, that the judges of the Jewish people, one of the tests that they gave the warrior Bar Kokhba, who led the rebellion against the Romans 65 years after the destruction of the Second Temple in the land of Israel. And Rabbi Akiva thought he was the Messiah. So one of the tests that they gave him is that it says, according to a verse in Isaiah 11:3, it says that the Messiah will be able to judge people according to his sense of smell, which means, once again, he will be such a pure soul when it comes to sexual behavior, speech, dress, etc., that his sense of smell will be fine-tuned. Now we know, like, for example, animals, they're able to tell dozens of information they receive through smell. And we know that humans today we are on a very low level of our sense of smell, but you do meet people once in a while that have a tremendous sense of smell. So the Messiah will be able to judge people not with witnesses or testimony, just by smelling them out. So very interesting. The test that was given by the judges to the warrior Bar Kokhba. There's even an opinion in the Talmud, when he did not pass this test, he was not able to judge according to the sense of smell, he was killed. We have to know that of all the 5 senses, you can do it very easily. It's SSS, TT, sight, smell, and sound, 3 S's, touch, and taste. SSSTT. Those are the 5 senses. The most spiritual of all those 5 senses is, of course, the sense of smell. This is written a lot of times when a person faints. What do? Person's faint, so his body is out, but they put some kind of spice or something under his nose, and that brings him back, because that is awakening a person's soul. As we will see, some sources, look them up, in the Tractate of Brachot 43b, the soul, our soul, enjoys the smells, the various fragrances, different smells. That's why when we leave the Sabbath on Saturday night, we take some spices and we smell them in order to console our soul that is saddened by the fact that the Holy Sabbath has left. If we look in the Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 5, paragraph 5, we see that there were 10 miracles that occurred in the temple. Many of them were connected to the sense of smell. Mount Moriah, where the temple stands, the most holiest place in the world, where the Jewish temple stands, it's called Mount Moriah. So we ask in Tanhuma, portion in the book Tanhuma, portion Vayera, paragraph 19, it says, why was the mountain called, the mountain where the temple stood, why was it called Moriah? Mor was one of the fragrances, was one of the smells. And therefore, imagine that. Think about, you think about holiness, and you think about sacrifices and prayers. And what name do we choose? Name of a smell. Because that is the most spiritual sense. In fact, we are told in many places that if you look at the sin, this week's portion of Breshit, we speak about the sin of Adam and Eve. The only sense that was not involved in the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge was the sense of smell. All other senses, the 4 other senses, if you look in the verses, you'll see very clearly touching, tasting. You'll see that all the 4 senses failed the test. The only sense that was not involved was the sense of smell. So this is considered to be, also we know that there are sacrifices, but something higher than the sacrifices was the bringing of the incense, what's called the Ketoret, with its 11 various fragrances and spices. That was even higher, the Zohar tells us, than the actual animal sacrifices. Once again, the sense of smell is a tremendously spiritual sense. It's most spiritual, and it's really an amazing sense. We could go on for a couple of hours speaking of that, but that's not really our point. It's very interesting also how, if you notice in the world, many times the world is able to chap, as they say in Yiddish, is able to understand and catch various slogans. So if you notice in the world, we use the word smell as a word of understanding. For example, I could smell a rat. That means there's somebody in this room or in this area or in this whatever's happening that he's false. It's not true. You smell a rat. Or something here smells fishy. Why do they use the word smell? Something here smells fishy. There's no fish here. There's something unusual going on, and I sense it. And we use the word smell. Or there's a smell of death in the air. Or I smell a killing. So interesting how the world, from our sources from the Torah, incorporated into the daily language smell as being a very lofty and spiritual sense of understanding what is happening really. And folks, the clincher here really is that we are standing 4 days. before the new month of Cheshvan. And if we look in the book Bnei Yissaschar, he goes into all the months and he tells us what we have to do, what fixing is needed for our souls and for our bodies, what lessons to be learned for every single month, what the program should be. Anyways, very interesting. Every month has a sense to it. The month of Cheshvan coming up is to fix the sense of smell. Amazing. But more so, more amazing, that this month he brings down, and also the Lubavitcher Rebbe brought down in many, many of his books. It's based on an amazing source. The source is in Yalkut Shimoni, Kings 184. Listen to this. The first temple was finished in the month of Cheshvan. King Solomon built the first temple, was finished in the month of Cheshvan, 4 or 5 days away from it. But it was not opened. God waited another 11 months till the following Tishrei, and then he opened inaugurated the first temple. By the way, this happened also, our sages tell us in this source I just read, they also tell us that the tabernacle in the desert was finished on the 25th day of Kislev, month of Kislev, but was not opened till the first day of Nisan. And God comes in the end of this paragraph of our sages and says the following, that I will repay, I owe you, 2 months of the year I owe you. I owe a holiday in the month of Kislev because we did not open the tabernacle, even though it was finished in the desert with Moses. So what holiday was given? Holiday of Chanukah. And I will repay with a holiday the month of Cheshvan, which will be the rebuilding of the third temple. Folks, amazing. There's so much power. You know, you finish the holidays. I know that this holiday season wasn't too happy. It was a lockdown in Israel, and you know, it was difficult times. People didn't see their kids or their parents, their family, their friends. It wasn't easy, but still it's a very, very lofty time, even so. And then you get into this month that there's like no holidays, kind of get bummed out. No time for losers, as Queen would say. No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world. Right, no time for losers here, guys. We got to get set. This is the time. This is more than any other month. This is the time that we could, rebuild and inaugurate, God willing, the third temple. But also the Bnei Yissaschar goes on and says that the opposite side of the coin is that, he makes an interesting statement here, that all the decrees against the Jewish people and destructions by the governments of the world or the kingdoms of the world always began in the month of Cheshvan. So, like everything, Zelumat Ze Asai Elokim, there's a scale, and there's two sides of a coin. There's the positive and there's the negative side. On the positive side, this month more than any other month has the potential to bring the Messiah and to build the third temple. On the other hand, if we don't utilize and take advantage of it, it has seeds of destruction, unfortunately. So it's really up to us. So folks, in summary here, all of us have to realize that the main ingredient, which we have not been hearing, we've heard about the mask and improve our speech. Of course, that's important. But here's a very, very important point about when we see COVID losing the sense of smell and taste. We have to, all of us, myself, all of us, we have to look in the mirror. We have to improve ourselves in all areas when it comes to tzniut, modesty, relationships, dress, code of dress, all of us. And if we could take advantage of, especially this time, as we said, the 6th spiritual sphere is modesty, sexual modesty, and that leads us to the seventh Messiah, King David, who the sense of smell. We lost the sense of smell because of our behavior, of our dress, etc., and we must return it. Now, it goes without saying that people that have it, doesn't mean that they themselves are responsible for this kind of behavior. We know that we're all responsible for one another. We know that the wicked sin, and many times the righteous pay the price. So we're not talking about individuals here that, of course, do not have these problems, but overall, in general. Okay, let's all take advantage of this time and these coming days and this coming month, and let's get to work. Bye.